You've probably seen a lot of different types of gold stamps on packaging that you've used in the past. But did you know that there's actually several different types of gold foil stamping? Well, let's first talk about what is hot foil stamping. Hot foil stamping refers to a technique where you're using a metallic foil and using the stamping machine to precisely stamp the foil into the packaging to create a more luxurious effect. And the reason why it's complex is because it really requires you to be precise with the temperature, with the time, the pressure, and even what kind of colors that you use against what kind of backdrop cardstock. There are several types of hot foil stamping techniques I'd like to show you. Alright, so the first one is going to be flat foil stamping. This is the most basic one that you probably have seen the most. This refers to a flat surface, single color, foil stamp, pressure, stamp machine, and creating that effect that is kind of 2D. The second one is going to be reverse scaling. So reverse scaling is very similar to the first one, but instead of stamping the design entirely in foil, you stamp the inverse of the design with foil to create the design that can show the backdrop of the paper that you're using against the outline of the foil. The third one is sculpted foil stamping. This involves the technique of using embossing and hot foil stamping together to create a 3D-like design. Embossing is a technique where you use paper and a metal plate to create a protruding effect. So when you brush your fingers over the design, you can actually feel the 3D texture on the paper. The sculpted foil stamping technique just refers to the embossing being done on the paper and then the gold foil being done on the paper. The fourth one is called print stamping over matte. This requires you to be very precise because it requires you to use hot foil stamping and color at the same time to create the final design. Any slight variations of changes means that the entire thing gets ruined because it's no longer aligned properly. Fifth one is called the holographic foil stamping. The metallic paper that you use has a holographic effect on it. Very futuristic effect, one of my personal favorites. It's super cool looking, but it's not frequently used. It doesn't cost that much more different. It's just a technique that really requires your brand to be aligned with the type of foil that you're using. So if your brand doesn't have a lot of holographic color, it's typically not an option that you like to use. The reason why I love hot stamping is because it doesn't use any ink, meaning that there is a lot more creative flexibility in terms of what kind of backdrop you want to use. Typically when you're using ink on paper, you have to consider how does the ink clash with the backdrop of the paper. There are certain colors of the backdrop where the ink being printed on the paper will change the color of the ink because it certainly mixes. But with hot foil stamping, because we're using a metallic foil sheet on top of the paper, the color does not change regardless of how you apply it. And it means that it creates a very luxurious feeling, gives you a lot more creative flexibility, and it just makes the box look so much more premium.